Oh, 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 no! Damn it! Oh, no!
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, buddy. How are you?
I'm all right. It is morning here. I know it's not morning there. What, it's 6 p.m.? 6 p.m. there?
Just about 5 p.m. here in
Okay,
Switzerland.
okay. You're only 6 hours ahead. You're not, or 6 hours ahead, not 7 hours ahead. What are you sipping on over there, man?
I've got local beer, local Swiss beer. Feldstraschen, it's called.
I'm cracking the top on something here, just special, because I've got.
In my Yeti cup.
You're gonna talk shit. I already know.
Oh, Guinness Zero. Fuck.
Don't hate on my pour, dude. I'm fucking terrible at pouring beer because I usually drink this straight out of the can, dude.
You're supposed to just dump it.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah, it does itself. It's calibrated. But yeah.
Well, slancha to you or cheers. There you go, man. Actually, when this came out, dude, I was so stoked because when I drank regular beer, that was actually like I was a big Guinness drinker.
Yeah, it's very nice.
This is actually probably I wouldn't say it's my favorite non-alcoholic, but it's right up there. Like they did a really good job. It tastes pretty damn close to the real thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sláinte or to your health. Yeah.
that's good stuff, man. Hold on, I gotta see if that's even made here. Nope, made at St. James Gate, Dublin,
Hmm.
and imported into the USA via New York. So it's actually made in Ireland. I know they've been putting the advertisements. I saw it during the Six Nations quite a bit, and I'm like, do Europeans even drink non-alcoholic beer?
I don't think it's the advertisements are for us. But yeah, some people do. Not me, but it does. It doesn't add up in my head. Why would I just drink water? That's
So how
fine.
long has it been since you've actually had a Guinness?
Oh, since I've actually had a Guinness, I had a taste of a Guinness out here once. I had a taste. And
Yeah.
I gave it straight back to the barman. It was like, take that away from me there now.
Did it just taste terrible to you, or?
Just fucking no. But Guinness is very. It's quite a difficult drink. You need to set up your entire kind of system to run Guinness properly because the flow has to be
Just right.
It has to be going constantly. So you either have a Guinness pub where everybody goes there, they're going there to drink Guinness. That's it, or you have one of those pubs where you have 15 or 16 beers and the Guinness gets neglected, and then shit gets all dirty in the lines, and it's not good.
I never even thought about that. Yeah, I guess, I mean, especially if you grow up in Ireland, I'm sure you're used to the best level quality of the drink, and when you're outside of it, you don't see those same standards held up. So I get it, man. I get it. It's it ain't McDonald's.
No, it's not. No, but you can't really just transport it everywhere. But the can is not too bad. Being totally honest with you, I've tasted way worse than the can. The can is pretty good.
Really? Is
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's more of a draft beer. It's not supposed to be canned or bottled. You're supposed to get it straight from the draft, I guess is
For
the.
sure, but at least there's no aftertaste off the can. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you get it if a pint is bad, a pint of Guinness is bad, you get a bad aftertaste, and it's like get away from it.
I remember when I had Tiernan on here one time and I asked him if he's ever gone to the brewery, and he like told me, he was like, "Yeah, let me let you know that picture that they show you, that's not that's like the front of it. The brewery is a huge facility. Like it's not mom and pop by any means. It's a corporation at this point." I'm just like, man, they were like, "Yeah, they'll take you on like the little tour and you'll see the old machinery, but that's not actually how it's made anymore. It stopped being made like that a long time ago." So
Yeah,
I'm sure if I wanted to run into Americans, I could go to the Guinness tour. I'm sure.
it is fun. It is fun. It's a lot of fun. It's more like You're right. It's for tourists and like large kind of corporate events now as well. It's a great way to impress international clients, and you know,
What's the bar that all the tourists keep? I don't know if you know what I'm talking. In Dublin, there's a bar that it seems like all the tourists go to because they think it's like a real Irish pub, and then everyone I've talked to is like, yeah, the only people that go there are the
tourists.
tourists.
It's
It's like,
probably Temple Bar,
okay,
and the pub is called the Temple Bar. So yeah, it's pretty famous, but I've never been in there. Never been in there. So
I remember the maybe second last time I was in Boston, I went to the bar that Cheers, that show Cheers was based on.
awesome.
It's in Boston, and it's a tourist trap, is all it is. It's because nobody from Boston actually goes there to drink, and that's kind of you can say that pretty much about every place in the world. There's always the stuff that the tourists, oh yeah, no, this place is legit, and you go there and it's like, no, this is where all the tourists go. But then there's the places if you're a tourist and you go into, they let you know you're not welcome here. Get the fuck out.
Yeah, I mean it depends. Like if you roll into an Irish pub, like kind of like a proper Irish pub, like the ones I described there, where everybody there is drinking Guinness, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like it's an unwritten rule. It's like so. I explained this to a friend of mine recently. It's like if you go to there's a famous place in Munich, Hofbräuhaus,
Yeah.
and you know when you go in there, they don't ask you what you want. They say, "What do you want? Light or dark beer?" That's it. So it's light or dark, and that's okay. It should be the same in these bars, but it isn't. It should be just it's Guinness. Would you like it cold or would you like it, regular room temperature? That's about it. But it's a kind of an unwritten thing, but it's the same, So yeah, but
Yeah. All right, man. Well, what a way to start out the show talking about beer and bars. And I don't drink anymore, but I'm drinking a non-alcoholic beer. So obviously, we had a full weekend once again as the URC was back in. I still feel like we're not done talking about nobody. Nobody seems to be done talking about the Six Nations, and I mean, like, I get it, like the continued conversation and some of the obviously me being a big South African fan, I'm seeing a lot of scuttlebutt. People are trying to blame Jock Nienaber for how bad the forwards did, and like, and
yeah,
it's funny because the people that are saying that are also the ones that think that the team should be like 14 out of the 15 starters should come from the team that he coaches. Like
yeah.
it's like so Friday it started off. I was at work. I wasn't really feeling great, but we did both watch this one obviously because it was the game of the week for I guess us for the most part, or at least the Friday game. Let me see if I can put the image up here. We had starting off the week. We had obviously. Did you go back and watch that Lions Cardiff game at all?
No, not really. I saw a couple of highlights, but I won't really call that game.
The end of that game looked like the Lions had a try at like the 81st minute. The first one was held up. The second one, they wanted to go to the TMO, and the guy was just like, "Game's over," blew the whistle. That was it. Like
Mm.
he just wasn't having any of it. He didn't want to hear any of it, so he ended that one. But the game for us, we were watching. I watched the first half. We go in at half 15-14. The first two tries going up early, quick, like in rapid fire succession. It seemed like it took about 20 minutes to get on the board, and then you come out in the second half, and it just seemed like the bench, as they brought on the bench, it just kind of became more of a stalemate. Um, Glasgow obviously coming back and getting the win from behind, but it just seemed like the second half. You saw it. You watched the game. It seemed like the second half came out, and Munster just kind of lost their go, lost their.
I mean, the easiest way to put it is like Munster played really well in the first half. Like even when they were a man down, they had a yellow card for so Fineen Wycherley, the second row, got yellow carded for a ridiculous fucking half dump tackle. Like ridiculous as in he deserved it. It was stupid of him. If you do that, you run the risk of getting the yellow carded. The guy didn't really hurt himself, but if you do it, you get yellow carded.
Yeah, yeah.
But Munster actually took the lead in that 10 minutes. And really, really good play. They were making game line with all of their forward carries and some neat and cohesive play kind of out through the back line. They were making consistent progress. And they looked, that's kind of how the game went for the first 60 odd minutes of the game. Even after just into the second half, it was quite similar. But, as we talked about before the game, we looked at the amount of academy graduates that were on the bench, and it was really hard to say how they were going to last. You know what I mean? I always looked at it and was just like, this isn't, they're going to lose momentum here at some point. And sure enough, they did. And you could see in the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes, Glasgow were making all of the play. They were making all the progress. They were winning the collisions. And I suppose, they deserved to win. It was just always going to happen, Munster didn't have it on the bench. I'm not going to start complaining about guys that were missing or anything like that, because a lot of those.
No, because everybody was. Glasgow was missing a lot of their key pieces as well, and that's kind of the thing that's different, at least for me, having come from Super Rugby to this, is that because you run your domestic or your regional test competition at the same time, the teams will lose players because they've been playing in the Six Nations. You never had that in Super Rugby because it was completely separate from everything. And while it bothers me to an extent, like, I get it though, because it's a really good way to build depth. When those guys are out, you bring in the young guys in, and it just feels like that's what it was. It was both teams had a lot of young, unused talent, I guess, or untested talent. But it just seemed like Glasgow's untested talent was just a little bit more tested than what you saw. I mean, there were guys on that. I went through that 23-man roster. There were guys that were on like their first, second, third, fourth, like third, fourth caps. Like, they have literally no experience. And to hold your own against a team that is the defending champion when you've lost your coach this year, plus you've lost some marquee names to injury, they held their own for what it's worth. They held their own. Like, and you have to applaud the youngsters. That 10 that they had, I can't even think of his name right now.
Tony Butler.
Yeah, he really held his own as kind of just being kind of a guy that I had never seen play. I mean, it's been Jack Crowley's job there for some time, and he's looking like, hey, look, hey, I just tell time. They need time. They need time to develop, and having these opportunities when these guys are out for the Six Nations is, as long as they're taking advantage of it. Wasn't a disappointing loss for Munster. I just it was one of those ones that kind of sticks you because you could have won if you just executed certain times of the game. You could have gotten the win. So
Munster they scored the first try in the second half as well. So you kind of, like, they did a lot of things right. Do you know what I mean? They scored first, scored 2 tries without reply first, and they scored the first try in the second half. It was they just ran out of gas.
Yeah,
just ran out of gas. They just didn't have the guys to back it up, and that's okay. Those are the limitations, and those guys will go away. But I looked at the bench. There was a couple of unused substitutes there.
Yeah, they didn't even use the full 23. You'd mentioned that, and I went back and watched the end. And you're right. I think they only used 20 or 19 or 20.
Yeah, the hooker wasn't replaced.
No.
And Keith Wood's son wasn't used at all, so he could have come on at center. But honestly, he wouldn't have been.
It wouldn't have made a big difference at that point in the game. I don't know if you noticed at the end of the game, they put the camera in the stands, and one of the I'd mentioned this to you when we were talking. God, did they not have lights in Glasgow? Like, it looked like they were playing in in the fucking woods, man. It was so dark, man. Like, you could see everyone's shadow, and it's like, dude, no, you need to brightly light this field, man. It's on TV. It looks like they were playing in like some park or something, But the camera panned over to the stands where all the undressed Glasgow players, the guys that played for Scotland, and you could tell at the end of the game, they were all like, it was like a sigh of relief because they're like, shit, we're gonna lose this game, and this is not the time of year where you want to be losing games when you're wanting, because you want to get that home playoff game. You don't want to have to go to South Africa for a playoff game. It's because it's hell, man. It's hell on the body. So
It's not easy. It's definitely not easy, you know. But I mean, look at teams are going to have to get used to that. That's the challenge you have. You know, there's 4 South African teams. They're going to do well. So, at some stage you're going to have to go down there. Munster have embraced that.
And you've won in South Africa. You've won in South Africa. It's not like you can't be done. It's
No.
It's kind of one of those things, like people I don't think people quite understand it because it's only an hour time difference, but the flight is like 12 and a half hours. Like, it's not, I mean, and even in Super Rugby, it was the same thing. Having to fly to Argentina was an 8-hour difference, and I think Australia was 11 and New Zealand was 12. It was time difference plus the flight. And I mean, it's, some teams use it as an excuse, some teams don't.
I guess it's like, from the Irish perspective, we've kind of looked at it as it's almost like touring experience. Do you know what I mean? So like, you get, if you've performed well, you've had to play 3 or 4 games in South Africa, and international coaches are looking at you like, oh well, he played well in such and such, played well in 3 consecutive games away from home. Well, can he do it for us internationally? Well, maybe there's a stepping stone to it, So a lot of guys have looked at it to try and prove a point.
I think it helps, honestly. I think it helps national teams if they've got to do that. If their players are used to that rigorous travel, it helps when it comes time to tour because they're already used to it. So,
I mean, we saw Benetton.
I was gonna go do the Sharks and Zebra, which was
Zebra. Sorry,
dude, that was fucking embarrassing, man. That was like a marquee shark. That was Bongi Manambi, Oxen Shea, Vincent Koch, not Eben Etzebeth, but Sia Khaleesi, Esterhuizen, both Hendrikse brothers, Makosoli Mampipi. This was a squad for them. And I mean, they won it in the end of the game. Like, it wasn't like, oh, they, Zebra should have never even been involved. I mean, this is one of the worst teams in the URC. I mean, I think the Dragons are the only team ahead of them in the table. So that was really disappointing. And I mean, I know a lot of people that were at that game who like had gone into it with like, man, we're going to see a shootout. We're going to blow these guys out of the water, and then like left like, what the fuck was that? Like, how the fuck did you almost lose to that team? Like, and
they played well, in fairness to them. Like,
Zebra played amazingly. And I mean, they are like one of those teams in this competition that literally has like no big name on their team. Like, they don't have any big names on their team. And, they held their own, and I tip my hat to them, but I think I'm a little bit more pissed off about how bad the Sharks played, considering look at their fucking payroll, man. They should be like the Leinster of South Africa, and they're not. They're not even close. So, while I was doing the post game for the game we're going to talk about, you messaged me. I had picked Benetton to beat Edinburgh just on the simple fact that they did not lose a lot of players during the Six Nations.
Okay, that's clever.
So their guys were rested, and they did in fact beat Edinburgh, which was, I had picked it. I had said, hey, they're going to beat them just because of that fact alone. I have not gone back and watched the game. Did you watch any of that one?
I saw a little bit of it. I was surprised, to be totally honest with you, at Edinburgh. I thought, I mean, they beat Munster convincingly recently. I was expecting a little bit more from them. But, without getting into too much detail, they were a little bit of a wet disappointment. So
the game of the week, at least for, I'd say, a majority of URC fans, you've got the unbeaten Leinster going into Loftus Versfeld, which, like, the whole idea that it's altitude RFC, I went back and looked at that. There's really only one team that can call it that. You know what team that is?
Probably
it's Leinster. It's Leinster.
Okay.
because Glasgow's beaten them there. The Stormers have beaten them. Like, everybody has beaten them there except Leinster. Leinster has not beaten the Bulls at Loftus in a while. Maybe it was a bit, but that was an ugly game. Bulls played absolutely terribly. I hope Villy gets his 100 caps this year and is, he could still play club, but the age is definitely starting to show with that guy. It's definitely like he doesn't have that. He still runs his mouth too damn much, but that's what Villy does. That's kind of part of his color and his banter. But um, it was it was great for the silence that we all knew was coming when the score was made official. It was. Hold on. I gotta just throw this fucking picture up here just because, like, I love the kid to death. I mean, he is literally a child essentially still. But I mean, I tip my hat to Tiernan. He's been really quiet. He's been getting dragged and he did this intentionally because he knew, like, oh, I'm gonna get dragged and it's gonna make my views go up. But like, at least Jimmy did a post game video and he's just like hanging his head low, and it's. I feel like if you did a map of Ireland, it's like who's cheering for Leinster, and it's just Dublin, and then everybody else is like, yeah, man, fuck Leinster.
Yeah, I think I reply to one of the ones just said, it's like, you obviously haven't realised yet, but everyone hates Leinster. You know,
Dude,
it's not.
I'm starting to realize that like, man, it's like the only people that like Leinster are Leinster fans. Like, nobody likes Leinster. It kind of harkens to a bit of, it's kind of like the Sharks inside. Like, the only people that like the Sharks are Sharks fans. Nobody else likes the Sharks, and kind of like what the Crusaders were in Super Rugby for a number of years. Like, nobody liked the Crusaders except Crusaders fans, and it didn't matter who they were playing. You were rooting for whoever they were playing against because you just wanted to see them get knocked down like a peg or two.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted for Leinster. We want them to get knocked down a peg or two. And like,
well, you know, it's kind of. I'm happy enough with that result because it's not enough of a wake up call to really kind of
shut their fans up,
but to make them reconsider what they're doing. But the real wake up call is going to come when it's too late, you know, and that's what I want. Semi-finals or final, just get it really good.
I went back and it's like, dude, since the South African teams have joined the URC, because it went from like the Pro 14 to the Rainbow Cup to the URC. Dude, here's an interesting fact. Benetton has more titles than Leinster does since South African teams joined. Munster has more titles than Leinster since the South African teams joined. Like, it's almost like they live off of this. Yes, they won Champions Cups. Yes, they've won top league titles. But it's like, dude, it's been a while, guys. It's been a while. Like,
yeah.
They remind me of Dallas Cowboys fans. Dallas Cowboys fans still call themselves Super Bowl champions. It's been 27 years since they won a Super
Bowl. Yeah, I guess like Leinster are kind of, they're propped up by the fact that they've got so many Irish players. So, like, if you were to look at it as like, you know, a financial exercise, you would never throw more money at this. You know, considering they're losing every year, you would never just go, okay, I'm going to throw twice as much money as I did last year at this.
Yeah. You know, and then they still bow out.
Because in a way it kind of adds pressure. It adds even more and more pressure. It's like, now whatever pressure those guys were under last year or the year before, they're in under 10x that now, because they've got RK Snyman, he's literally one of the best second rows in the world. That guy, he catches the ball with one hand in the lineout.
His lineouts are, he does the one-handed catch in the lineouts and then brings it down or offloads it with one hand. dude.
It's like a basketball player.
Yeah, like, and that's he's I think he's 6'9", 6'8", 6'9", so he literally is the size of an NBA player. Like he
Yeah,
could
and
play in
he's
the
like
NBA.
a fucking tree as well. So excuse my language, but
Yeah,
he's. I mean, also they brought in like Slimani. Like I talked about him. It was interesting to see that,
yeah.
like at the very end of the game, the penalty that won the game for the Bulls,
The
they got.
scrums, man, they barreled through them in that final scrum in the game.
Yeah,
That was like whole because I mean I was about to turn the TV off. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
game's over, we lost, yada yada yada. And people, you could see people exiting the stadium. People were
Mm.
exiting. They're like, "Yeah, the game's over. There's no way." And then they get that scrum penalty, and you just see everybody just lose it immediately. And it was just like, son of, because they had to remember they had to reset it. Like, how many times did they have to reset? Three
It
or
was a
four
few
times.
times anyway. But I mean, the main thing for me is I was just looking at the front row guys, and I was thinking they're not celebrating the fact that we got a penalty and they're going to win the game. They're celebrating that they absolutely dominated that scrum. That's what they're celebrating.
Yeah,
Like this guy that they have in tight head, he comes with like the highest like, you know, I mean, if you look at the top 14, I'm not sure. I know you're not like a massive fan, but it's literally like a scrummaging league. It's just like every single team they've got both. You know, they've got two front rows that are just savage. You
yeah.
know, and this guy was considered the best scrummager that's ever been in the top 14, and Leinster have him now as well, magically. So
And
that's not.
and then he gets bullied by the Bulls,
They
basically.
get bullied, so
Yeah,
you know they deservedly celebrated, in my opinion.
yeah.
And so anyone who's saying Leinster's B team and they've got two, you know, I'm
Well,
afraid
and that
not.
was the thing. Like, that was the thing that I had made a TikTok about. Like, look, man, okay, like, okay, the All Blacks 15 that played Munster last year,
Mhm.
okay, that would be an All Blacks B team. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, you have like Quintupaya who has a few All Blacks caps, and you know what I mean. Like, nobody on there is a regular All Black. That's a B team, okay. But when you've got somebody like Audrey Snyman who's won 2 World Cups, you've got somebody like Jordy Barrett who's still in the prime of his career and still will definitely be around for the next 2 World Cups.
yeah,
That's not a B team anymore, guys. That's not a
no,
B team. That's like, look, if you and me were on an old man's team and Johnny Sexton rocked up to be our 10 and we're playing in an old man's league, they would say you guys can't play because you've
mm,
got Johnny Sexton. You're not an old man team anymore if you got Johnny Sexton doing your kicking.
yeah, for
It,
sure.
it's not an amateur league that you guys are playing in a city park. You've got Johnny Sexton. It's not amateur, and it's not amateur hour anymore. When you've got those kind of talent on your team, and then you look at like the Leinster Academy system. I mean, as much as I hate Leinster, they've got an academy system that's like bar none. Like
Yeah, 100%. That's
it's
the best in the world. Best in the
yeah,
world.
like one of it's if not the best, one of the best in the entire world. I've seen their workout facilities. Everything is top of. I mean, to quote Dr. Hammond or Mr. Hammond in Jurassic Park, they've spared no expense. Like they've spared no expense. Like
No,
it's
no, no.
top of the line. Everything they've got the most advanced training center, the most advanced systems, everything. So to be an academy player out of Leinster Academy, you already have a leg up on other academy kids. Like you're
That's right.
already coming from the best coaching, best training, everything.
Yeah.
So to sit here and say, "Oh, it's a B team," is disrespectful to Bowden Barrett, Audrey Snyman, and any of those guys. Because, dude, I'm willing to bet that you could probably come through the Leinster Academy and get a spot on any professional team on the planet.
But look at, I mean, just look at the back three. Like, what was it? Oh, the two O'Briens.
Yeah,
One of them, like
or Osborne's. Was it the Osbornes or O'Brien?
Osborne played 13, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
And Tommy and Jimmy O'Brien playing in the back three,
yeah.
and I'm not sure who played on the other wing, but like, I mean, Tommy O'Brien has been seriously highly talked about at Leinster. He like I would say I would put odds, I put money down that he's going to be in the next Irish squad for like this time next year, the next
Yeah.
Six Nations. I'd put money down on that. Osborne will be as well if he improves things. But I think he's a centre. They've been moving him around. But anyway, these are all international players. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Even your B squad is going to be a talent, and to say that is disrespectful to those guys, and it's really just a cop out. Like, you lost because you didn't play well enough. The end. And when you get knocked out in the postseason, they're going to buy another import. They're going to, we're missing just this piece, or and they do that every year. They add a different piece, thinking, if we just add this piece, it'll make a difference. And it's like, sometimes they don't pan out,
Just to inform your listeners, like they might wonder, how does this keep happening? And we've chatted about it before. So like the structure of Irish rugby is such that if you get onto an Irish squad regularly, they give you what's called a centralized contract. Okay, so your player who plays for Munster play for Leinster, and you get a centralized contract. That means Leinster don't have to pay your wages. Now this year they've changed that a little bit. They only have to pay 30% of the wages, but that's still 70% off. Like, that's a huge saving. So then if you have upwards of 10 players on central contracts playing for Ireland, that's 10 players that you don't have to pay like wages for. So, every year they do have the money to go and reinvest and bring in marquee signings. And even if they lose this year, they still will have the money to do it again next year and the year after, and probably the year after that. And it's only really until either the RFU changes the structure of how that's divvied up. And I don't really agree with that either. I think it should be done on merit, and they deserve it, so give it to them. But it's only really when that kind of balance between Leinster and Munster, or the other two, Connacht, Ulster, changes, will you see the kind of the buying power of Leinster kind of calm down. But yeah,
it's crazy how sports work outside of the US and Canada, because they kind of both operate the same in both of these countries. And like, people are like, here you've got to have like unions, or you have unions and you have governing bodies. And I'm like, in America and Canada, we don't do that. There's no regions. We don't have academy systems for our sports, because that's not how they operate here. Everything's owned by individuals. They're all privately owned, with the exception of like the Green Bay Packers, which is a publicly owned team. Everything here is privately owned. The owners invest all their money. There's salary caps, but there's always ways around it. I mean, look at how the Dallas Cowboys had their success in the 90s. It's because they were constantly violating the salary caps. They figured out ways around it, and there's always a way. And then there's sports that don't even have them. Major League Baseball does not have a salary cap. Like, you could spend as much as you want. That's why the New York Yankees were so good for so many years, because they had an unlimited budget. So, and I think it's kind of as you try to push sports into the US, you're going to have to understand that's how sports operate here. Like, they're not going to change the rules here for you. They're going to operate them how they want to operate them here.
Well, I think there's obviously with the top 14 in France, there's an example there where all of the clubs are completely privatized, as to the detriment of the national team.
Rosters, and look at the rosters they're able to put together.
Ridiculous. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. As I said, every club side in France has, what we would, if you looked at them, you were like, okay, that's an international front row, and they've got an international front row to come off the bench as well. Excuse me, but others, you can't say that about English teams, or certainly not all of the URC teams.
No.
I mean, Munster barely have one.
Yeah, it's crazy how France operates. I mean, that's why they're able to have, like, they had Owen Farrell and Sia Khaleesi on the same team, and it's kind of become like the place you go when you want to make that good paycheck. You go to France. France. That's where the good pay is. Now, the downside of it is we've seen how they treat some of the stars when they don't quite live up to their expectations. They'll say, they're lazy and they're fat. And it's like, they did it to Sia. They've done it to Owen. I knew Juan Imhoff. He played for Argentina.
Oh, yes.
He played for Racing 92, I believe. Yes. So his brother, Pedro, or Pitt, as he went by, actually played rugby domestically here in the U.S., And his brother explained to me, like, dude, it's like when you work for a French team, they own your ass.
Oh yeah,
Like they can tell you, oh, you can't go play international. We have your contract.
100%. Like that's
And
why.
they'll do it. They'll do it too. They don't give a shit.
Like that's why, like when the French Union wants to do a Southern Hemisphere tour, all of the clubs in the top 14 collectively say no,
nope.
not with our players. You're not taking our players down there
Because we pay their bills, you don't.
Exactly.
And it's kind of crazy because that's how it is here in the U.S. Like, we're old enough to remember the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, which the big thing there was when they started letting the USA use NBA basketball players, and of course they went out there and absolutely smoked every team they played because it was fucking Michael Jordan, for fuck's sakes. I mean, you're not going to get much better than that. And the reason they allowed that was because the NBA wanted to cut, and it's the same thing with ice hockey. You'll see the Winter Olympics. Sometimes it's the NHL guys, sometimes it's not. And when it's not the NHL guys, it's because the league says no, they're not allowed to play. And
Yeah.
it is the disappointing side that I don't like about American sports, but France does it too. France does it too, and I think we think it's just the way the things are going, and it is. It's unfortunate, but could you imagine? Could you imagine Munster saying we're not going to release our players to the Irish national team? There'd be fucking riots in the streets.
It just would never happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. Like Irish rugby isn't set up well enough financially to like we do have some billionaires, and if they wanted to put money into a club to save some tax, I'm sure it could work. But like it's much more than a financial kind of a thing. If you're running a sports team is very often a loss making exercise, and you have to have super rich people who consider it their plaything. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
we just don't have that. So
I had done a thing a while back talking about billionaires by country, and I added up all 6 nations, all the rugby championship, and Japan combined. Okay, added up how many billionaires all those countries have combined, and I think it was somewhere right around like 480, 490. Okay, all 11 of those countries combined, the U.S. had more than twice that amount by itself. And it was like, I looked at it, and I'll tell you the 2 countries that had the least in all of that, Argentina had 2 and South Africa had 4. And the country that had the most out of all 11 of those countries was Japan. Japan had a lot. Japan had a lot. France had a lot. England had a lot. Italy had a handful. I think Ireland had, 10 to 12. I know New Zealand only had like 4, I think, but New Zealand's small as hell too. So it was just, it's a money thing, and I think that like that's the worry thing that worries me the most about rugby and what direction it's going is you can tell it's money. They need more money, and it's the 11 countries at the top. They don't have the money to shell out the way a country like Saudi Arabia or the United States has. And the problem is that neither of these 2 places, the things that we love the game for, the spirit and the values that me and you, we love rugby for, they don't carry those same values. They don't carry that same spirit. Neither country does. And it scares me because I don't want to see something I love so much turn into just a money-making scheme. But in order for it to survive, it's going to have to eventually do.
It probably will. It probably will. We'll have to see what way it goes. But I mean, you're right. Like a lot of people don't see that aspect of it, and they really should. Like we had a conversation before the last round of the 6 Nations. And you would have thought Ireland would put out an experimental side against Italy.
Yeah.
And then I pulled up the numbers to you, and I said the difference between coming third and coming fourth is about 1.5 million, and if they manage to come second over third, it's again another 1.5
It's
million.
a huge amount of money you're missing out on.
Money. So that is exactly the reason why they put out as stacked a side as they could to try and win that money. That's literally salary for all of those players that are on the pitch. That's what it is, you know. So
And I get that. It's just like I said, it's you worry about it because it's like, we're not spring chickens anymore, Colin. We're both 40 and up, and
yeah,
we see a lot of these kids on TikTok because we're both on there, and like those kids they weren't even alive when it was amateur still, because even after it went professional in '95, it was still pretty much amateur. I'd say it stopped feeling totally amateur probably around 03, 04, 05. That was when it, to me at least, it really stopped feeling amateur at that point. I don't know if it was a little earlier for you guys in Ireland or not, but
oh no, it was later. I mean,
yeah.
like the Southern Hemisphere sides had to jump on us big time. They had at least 10 years of a jump.
Well, not all of them, because Argentina, I don't think, even went professional until like 2012. And it's like these kids that were all born after that, they don't remember, like they don't know what it was like for your favorite rugby player to have a day job. Like I tell the story all the time. My dad used to get his oil changed by the starting hooker for the '91 Canada team. Yeah, like that guy had a job. He worked at a car shop. Like these guys all had jobs, and I don't think these kids growing up now, like they don't understand like how big of in our lifetime the sport has changed 180 degrees. Like
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys even that you wouldn't have, even from the 2000s, that when they finished up, they just took up regular jobs. Do you know what I mean? They're not big shot jobs. They're not like absentee jobs either. They're legit jobs. So obviously to keep yourself busy, but they also have to make a living. So I mean, professional, fair enough, but um, I agree. Like I don't think we're capitalizing anywhere near as much as we should do. I mean, you see the numbers for the Six Nations. You see the amount of people that all over the world, all like everyone who watches rugby was watching the Six Nations.
yeah.
It's box office. Like I'm not saying they're the best teams in the world. I'm not. It's not
No,
even
but I
about
mean,
it.
as far as ratings go, it's very well watched. Like you see that, like, look, going to a pub here, like I did the last game of the end of the autumn internationals when Wales did played against Springboks. I was able to go to a local bar, brewery here. It was a brew house kind of a place, and got them to put it on the TV. I sent out a thing on Facebook, and I got some South Africans to come out. It was a great time, but like you couldn't really, you'd have to set that up. I could walk into any bar during the Six Nations here, and if it was the right time of day, I could tell them to put it on the TV. Like it's not something you have to like arrange. You have to have an arrangement to watch the rugby championship. You have to have that arranged because it's not on a major broadcaster here. It's not like that in a lot of places. Like I've been told, in Europe, it's hard to watch. It's almost impossible to watch Super Rugby. Like they
Yeah,
might show some games late at night or something like that, but for the most part, you never see it. And thankful for the thing they invented called the internet, and we can all watch everything. It's unfortunate that everything else that came along with it, but hey, we would have never met if it wasn't for the internet.
no, for sure. But I mean, like, I think that is the major issue, that they need to sort out is, so we've got Italian viewers, we've got French viewers, we've got English speaking viewers. That's the three, demographics, right? Even inside the English speaking portion of the Six Nations, you've got channels in the UK, and you've got channels in well, Irish channels, but also kind of broadcast over the UK. And in the UK, they don't have a certain competition, but over here they do have a certain competition. It's kind of all a bit mixed up. Like we should be able to watch. We should know instantly, right? What channel am I watching my rugby on? I should be watching it on. I should be able to watch my URC, my European Cup rugby, and I should be able to watch the Six Nations, and I should instantly know what channel I can go to watch
Yeah,
watch it on.
you shouldn't have to scan through to see who's covering what. Like, and that's something I do say that like is a bit I mean, there's legal means to watch rugby here, and there's not so legal means. I pay for the legal means when I can, but if I don't have that,
Mm.
the illegal means is not easy. It's not like, oh, you just put it on channel 4 and it's there. No, it's like you might have to go through 5 or 6 channels to find the game. And it's like, I want to say, is that TNT Sport in the UK where they have like 8 channels? And
Yeah,
that's the other disappointing part. I've seen marquee rugby games and it's not even on their top 2. It's on like TNT 8. It's like
yeah.
you know what else? You know what they're showing on every other channel?
Football, soccer.
Soccer. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all they're showing. And I mean, I get that. I get that the money in that sport is, well, hell. I mean, you look at the World Cup coming here, and I don't think they're playing in a single venue that seats less than 70,000 people, and they're going to sell out every single game in the World Cup
Yeah,
here.
for
And
sure.
it's the money, the future. There's nothing we can do. We're getting older. I just try to impart on these young kids like the spirit of the game. Like, don't ever lose that shit, because the second that goes away, it's never going to be the same for any of us ever again. Unfortunately, it's
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we talk about it. Even it's about like how we interact with each other online. You know, like the certain fan groups hating each other because Johnny Sexton said something to fucking Rico Ioane or some bullshit, and you're like, you realize these guys went off and had a beer afterwards. They had no issue with it whatsoever. It was forgotten about the second it got said. They partied that night and it was all done. So
yeah.
why the hell should we be arguing? It's just essentially we're all on the same team here. We
Well,
just
it's like they almost want to add what is that tabloid in England? Is that the Sun? The tabloid in England? It's like they want to add that element to the game, and it's like,
yeah, it sells, but it can get a bit toxic.
Yeah. But damn, we haven't even talked about these other games. I did watch the Stormers and Scarlets game. Absolutely beautiful win from them. Much needed. They moved into playoff position with that win. The Lions dropped way down. I think they're at like 10th or 11th now. But the Stormers, so it's the Stormers, Bulls, and Sharks all in playoff position right now. A team that's quietly surprised me, Ulster, is actually doing pretty well. And they really don't. That's another team that really doesn't have. I mean, how many guys on the Ireland national squad play for Ulster? 1, maybe 2.
Maybe Henderson at times.
Yeah, it's like they literally have nobody on that team, and it's like they do fairly well for a team of nobodies. I mean, I know I'm going to piss some people off with that.
Flip that and send that out.
I'm going to say this honestly. Everybody that I know that lives in the north of Ireland, which I know you guys have a different word for it, because I heard it in it was an Irish guy on a date with a girl, and she had never had a spice bag.
All right.
And he called her. It was another name for somebody from the north of Ireland. I don't like calling it the UK name because that's not what it is to me. But
a Northie.
A Northie. Yeah, that's what he called her. He's like, "You've never had a spice bag," and she's like, "What is it?" It's a spice bag, and that's so. Everybody that I know that lives there, I have one Ulster fan support, like fan friend. One. Everybody else that I know that lives in the north, they're Leinster fans.
Okay, that's a bit. No, I don't know what to say about that.
I'd rather they be Ulster fans, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck. I mean, no disrespect, Jimmy knows rugby. Jimmy lives in Newry, which I think you can literally hit a golf ball. No, I don't. Yeah. You can hit a golf ball.
That's on the border. It's on the border. It's a border town. Yeah.
He actually is like, he's like, if you live there, that's fine. I get it. You can be a Leinster fan, but like, there's a lot of people that I know live a lot further into country than he does, and they are Leinster fans. And it's like, he's even gone to games in Belfast and said that, like, you see a lot of Leinster fans at their games. It's like, I guess it's kind of like they're like the New England Patriots or the Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody likes Leinster. I guess I don't, but you don't.
It's kind of it swung around. So initially, it was only really South Dublin people that were Leinster fans.
Yeah.
Everyone else, even inside Leinster, mostly identified with Munster.
Shit. No
Yeah,
shit.
Munster was pretty much the most supported team. I would actually still argue it is the most supported team in Ireland. But like if you looked at just say, away attendances when Munster go to travel abroad for a game, like it tends to be
They bring their crowd with them.
it tends to be in force,
Yeah.
so that's a good measure. But like I know plenty of there's even Leinster players current Leinster players who grew up as Munster fans, even though they're
Playing for Leinster.
even though they grew up in Leinster, because that particular area wasn't,
And we had one last one, which was a disappointment in my opinion. How the fuck you gonna lose to the Ospreys? Come on, Connor. How the fuck you gonna lose to the Ospreys? Like, I can forgive losing to Glasgow, but I can't forgive losing to the Ospreys, man. Like that's how the fuck you gonna like, come on, man. It's Wales. They finished with the wooden spoon in the Six Nations. They could have all their players and they're still not good. It's just like I didn't watch that one at all because I really like Connacht is just one of those teams that it's like there's just so much going on there. And I mean, I know the big names. Obviously, they have Mac Hansen, they have Bundy Aki. So who else plays there? Who else big name plays there?
I mean, Jack Carty plays there.
Yeah.
There's young scrum half playing there at the moment who's really, really good. But I mean, what can I say about Connacht? Like, it's hard to predict. Like, things change with them so quickly. They're really, really good, but I mean, they're one of these clubs where they need all of their best players there. Do you know what I mean? To really
to make a difference.
To make a difference. I mean, Munster, you could argue, are in the same boat, but and definitely Ulster. But I mean, I suppose it looked like a good game, but I mean, I didn't watch it, so I can't really comment. No offense to Connacht fans. I know one of their players, Smith is his name, got drafted into the Munster squad, and a few of the Connacht supporters, Connacht crew online weren't happy about that. But
that guy's over in Hong Kong right now, I think, man. Connacht crew. I guess I guess he's with his family on holiday, or maybe his dad's over there on business, or maybe who knows? Maybe he's on business over there. But like that guy is, he is the hardest Irishman for me to understand. Period. Because he speaks so slowly and he mumbles.
The accent, okay.
Yeah, and he mumbles, and it's like it's funny though, and I've told you this, like. When I first started talking to Irish people, they told me, "Oh yeah, if you go to like Munster, you're not going to understand anything they say." Guys like you and like Zara, your accent's not super, but like Zara still lives there, and she's a teenager. And like, I'm going to be completely honest with you, like the Munster people I talk to, they're the easiest ones to understand.
Yeah.
There's a guy
more
named
monotone about our accent. It's not really, there's not much of a twang to our accent, but yeah.
There's a guy, Dolan, that's also on TikTok. He lives in an island off the coast of Scotland where that whiskey is made. Lagavulin, I think, is the name of the whiskey.
Okay.
He's got an odd accent. Like, it sounds like an Irish Scottish accent is what it sounds like. I mean, it's cool sounding to me, but like I didn't really.
It's probably exactly what it is.
Yeah, because he's like, I'm Gaelic. I'm like, okay, and he's like, I'm a Gaelic Scot. I'm like, I don't know anything about that, and he tried to explain it to me and whatever. He's like, I identify more with Ireland than I do with Scotland.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah,
he's like, that's what we are. We're more. He was like, but even the town that I live in, like, he was like, look at some of the names of the towns on that, and it's like they have like almost like Norwegian, like Icelandic names. Like he was like, yeah, there were a lot of like that here, like Vikings and shit came here. I was like, okay. So
the accents are quite tough for Hope anyone listening can understand what I'm saying. If
No,
not,
yours is not bad at all. I've had Rugby Mall on here, and he's not an English speaker. It's not his first language. He speaks Afrikaans, and his accent was pretty. He's a Pretoria, South African. That guy's accent is thick. Like it's like bad thick. Like he could play a bad guy in American movies. That's how thick it is. Like you would just be the barkeeper in the background of an American movie. Like you have some backstory, like you came over after the war or something like that. His was like he's the henchman that runs the casino. Like he's like that bad. So there is one last thing I did want to bring up because it got announced this week, and I know it's something that at least I'd hope you're excited about because I know I am a bit as well because
thinking
it seemed to get these all the time.
oh yeah,
Yeah, you're gonna get to play the Argentina 15, Argentina 15 at Tommen Park in November. This will be leading up to the end of the year series, so you'll get a bit of a warm up game for them, but it's also a chance for international test rugby in Munster. Like,
yeah.
could you explain? Because we've seen this before. We've seen the All Blacks 15 do it. We saw the Māori All Blacks play it when you guys paid tribute to the late great Sean Wainui.
Mm,
Very big fan of his. Obviously, a former chief. He passed away. You guys paid your respects. You set a jersey out on the field before the haka.
yeah.
Why is it that Munster seems to get these games?
It's down to the history, man. Particularly with New Zealand teams, but not just. I mean, like Munster have beaten everybody, like on tour. Like anytime, like back in the day, like when any team went on tour, it tended to be a long tour because guys were like they were away for a few months, so you played a lot of games. Do you know what I mean? And up until like the 90s, that's how it was done. You played like you were away for a few weeks at a time. You can play as many games as possible. So Munster they've beaten the All Blacks in 1978. They beat Australia in the 90s. They've beaten South Africa as well. Now, most of the tests now in recent times have been against like B squads and stuff like that. But back in the day, it was the full squads that they were beating. Back in the 90s, they beat an Australian team who, as far as I know, had just won the World Cup. And it was the same. Well, it wasn't the same, but they beat a full strength All Blacks team in 1978 as well. So. Like they played South Africa, what was it, or 2 years ago? They played the Crusaders last year.
Yeah, it just seems like Munster always gets that reward, and it's nice to see. Like I like watching those games when I can watch them because your crowd comes out in full force, but it's
Yeah.
always cool to see like those second sides of international teams getting to play in a stadium. Is very intimate. It looks good on TV. But that's the main thing I could say. It just looks very, very good on TV.
It's also like it's kind of like for us, it's kind of like a fairy tale thing. Like obviously Munster always go into these games as the underdog. Okay, so which is a very comfortable position for a Munster team to be in, and kind of do really well in. And if you look back at all of those games, they've either won them or they've lost them by a narrow margin. It's been quite a good game, and it's really nice to see that it's going to be in Thomond Park. So for me, I'm a Limerick man. I'm biased, but Limerick have a stadium, or sorry, Munster have a stadium that they need to pay off. And they need to to break even and kind of make some money off. In previous years, they've moved it to a different stadium in Cork, and so the money made from it gets split with a different organization. But at least for me, it should be in our home stadium. We've got bills to pay. We need to make all of the money. Even if it's it's not a 60,000 seater stadium, but at least we make all the money. So yeah,
I'd have to imagine it's probably a good boost to your tourism as well, because people are going to travel for that a bit, and especially if you're a kid in Dublin and there's no way your dad can afford All Blacks tickets. Hey, we can go down to Munster and watch the All Black 15. Like, I mean, that's how I would look at it, just from a financial standpoint. It's like, hey, or hey, Dad, we're gonna go from New Zealand to Europe to watch these end of the year games. We can't get the All Blacks tickets at Aviva because they sold out immediately, but we can go watch. You know what I mean? Like, it's a good way to bring tourism dollars into the city, and also it's like I said, on television it looks amazing. Like that, the first time I remember watching a Munster Stadium was that Maori All Blacks tour where you played Munster, and I remember everybody can remember the famous shot because it was like foggy outside,
Yeah, it looked
and
mythical.
Ash Dixon was the captain of the Maori All Blacks. They came and sat the jersey down in front of him, and there's a famous shot of you just see like the fog in the air and the two teams facing each other, and like I'm getting goosebumps just because it looked absolutely beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
Like it just looked like a fun. It was a test match atmosphere, but it was fun. Like it was serious because they were paying respects, but it just looked like a fun. I would have loved to have been at that game. It would have been. It looked like it was just a fun atmosphere. Like regardless of who won,
Yeah.
there were no losers because everybody won because you were there and you got to watch some good rugby. Like you got to watch. Um, if I recall, like that one was pretty even starting on, and then in the second half, the Body All Blacks just kind of ran away with it, and you can kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
It
The
was
previous one, I was at the previous one, and it was just that was the one where the Munster players had did their own haka. It was for Kiwis in the team. They stood out and did a haka right in front of the Maori All Blacks, which is incredible. You know, and what was it? It was an army helicopter. Flew over and a guy jumped out of the helicopter and winched down and dropped the ball into the center of the stadium and flew off, and it was kind of everybody was like,
well, I mean, yeah, you got to think for like what you paid for a ticket. That was you got your money's worth. You saw
Yeah.
it's a performance, and you got it. You know the pageantry of it, and
well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, like the All Blacks go all around the world, but you know, like, I mean, you're talking about a photograph there, but like one of the things that created the atmosphere there is one, they had mics very close to the guys doing the haka, and the crowd was absolutely perfectly silent. They were like totally respectful of the occasion, and it wasn't just because of Sean White knew it. Like they do that every single time, but the haka is in front of them, and it kind of is. It's a special moment for everyone. Do you know what I mean? So we may try to make it as big as we possibly can, and they've always tended to be memorable occasions. So yeah, we have another one with Argentina in
November.
So who knows what way that will go? But yeah,
I mean, it's going to be fun. Like I said, it always looks good on television when you see those games there because, like I said, it's an intimate venue. It's big, but it's not too big, and like the crowd, like just always just seems to be you see it, like you see the older heads in the crowd, like okay, we've been here before, we've done this, but then you see the kids and their jaws are like just dropped. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh man, we don't have to go to Aviva or Croke Park to see this. We can see it in our backyard, and it's. I didn't have to buy a new jersey. I can wear my Munster jersey that I already have, or my dad can get me an All Blacks jersey so I could wear that and be a kid wearing an All Blacks jersey or whatever. And it's like you see that, and it's like, I guess maybe because we're older men, and it's no longer about like just fucking pride. It's like no, it's the spirit of the game. That's the spirit of the game in a nutshell.
100%.
That's all about the. It's not about a paycheck. It's not about the fame. It's about the spirit of the game. And when
Yeah, I mean, I remember those games. There's like I suppose there's a fairly fat handful of Munster games that I remember, and I wasn't able to get to all of them. Like tickets were red hot back in the day, but like to get to one of those Maori AB's games, just like I won't forget it. Certainly won't forget it ever. Like so, yeah.
Well, as always, man, thank you for jumping on here to talk URC, beer,
Always.
rugby, and culture. As always, Colin, we'll make this a regular thing. As I was not able to do my podcast with Pierre this week as he was under the weather, so this will be my weekly podcast this week. So I appreciate you for coming on, man.
100% enjoyed.
All right, man. Cheers.